Let's think about the sheer amount of power required to keep the modern world awake. Every glowing screen, every running engine, every hum of an industrial plant draws from a massive, continuous global feed. To maintain that baseline, roughly 17 to 21 million barrels of oil must cross our oceans every single day. The demand extends to natural gas, too. Massive fleets of Qatari carriers are shipping liquefied natural gas, or LNG, acting as the primary fuel source keeping electricity grids across Asia running. If you map these shipping lanes backward from Europe and Asia, they funnel through the Indian Ocean toward the Arabian Sea. But watch what happens at the source. All these sprawling highways merge into one tiny gap. Because 1/5 of the entire global oil supply relies on this single waterway, blocking a space barely wider than a city is enough to paralyze the global economy. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Geographers classify it as a maritime choke point, wedged perfectly between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. At its narrowest, the distance between shores is 33 kilometers, but navigable water is tighter. Shallow depths restrict tankers to a 3-kilometer inbound and 3-kilometer outbound lane. Separating this explosive cargo is a buffer zone barely 2 kilometers across, leaving zero room to maneuver. This extreme lack of space grants Iran a massive strategic advantage. Operating from their northern coastline, they regularly deploy fast, highly mobile patrol boats and naval mines directly along the shipping lanes. To counter this, the United States Navy maintains a heavy regional presence, basing their Fifth Fleet in nearby Bahrain to escort these vessels. You have thousands of vulnerable commercial ships trapped in a tight corridor, flanked by heavily armed opposing military forces. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, both sides actively targeted these lanes, physically damaging hundreds of vessels and what became known as the Tanker War. The threat persists today. In 2019, multiple commercial vessels were actively attacked and damaged right outside the strait. When physical ships take damage, maritime insurance costs skyrocket to cover the risk. Those immediate financial penalties are quickly passed down the supply chain to global consumers. Why rely on water? Gulf states built overland pipelines to bypass Hormuz completely. But the data shows the maximum flow rate of every bypass pipeline combined is a fraction of what the strait handles. They lack the raw capacity to replace millions of daily barrels. The bottleneck is absolute. The global market is physically trapped by this waterway, securing its permanent strategic leverage. If the strait is ever fully blocked, the immediate shockwave would be catastrophic. 20% of the planet's oil supply would drop to zero overnight. This chart visualizes the expected panic. Market analysts project crude prices would instantly spike, potentially crossing $150 a barrel and sending stock markets into a tailspin. Downstream, that hits everyday logistics. Nations heavily reliant on these imports, like India, would face sudden disruptions in electricity production and severe price hikes for cooking gas. But there is a massive geopolitical paradox keeping the oil flowing. Blocking the strait would economically devastate Iran itself, because their domestic refineries rely on the exact same waterway to export their own oil. Furthermore, halting international shipping lanes is a direct provocation. Attempting to close the strait would instantly trigger military retaliation from the fleets already deployed in the region, escalating into a wider war. We operate in an era of digital markets and hyper-advanced technology. Yet the survival of the modern world is still dictated by the physical geography of a waterway barely a few kilometers wide.